everyone, this is update for April 30, 2024, day 797 of the war and of the date update. Also catch up for April 29 and 28. I'm going to start as always with general strategic updates, and then I'm going to switch to the walks through the battleground. There's really only one important update is that Ukraine resumed attacks against Russian oil refineries, and there's a couple where just recently just happened, and there are actually statistical data from Russia on the result of those attacks. So in March, gasoline production was down 8% year on year. So basically it means March 24 versus March of 23, and then for diesel fuel, I think it's like 5.7%. So, this is relatively significant blow. Ideally, it would be better for Ukraine when diesel production goes down more than gasoline, because all of the military equipment is using diesel fuel, not gasoline. Gasoline is more sort of for civilian use. Nevertheless, it creates strain, and this is, as I mentioned before, this is the only strategy, the only sort of tool or thing that works for Ukraine, that actually doing something meaningful for its defense, for potential success in this war. To be fair, that success is, chances of that are going down with every passing day, but this is something sort of bright spot for Ukraine. Now I'm going to switch to the walk through the front line, and I'm going to do it in a clockwise fashion, as I always do. So the first situation along the state border, really not much to comment there. Things stable, similar. There's no sign of imminent Russian invasion or major attack or offensive against Kharkiv. Again, I think word offensive is not the best choice, because neither Ukrainian nor Russian army are capable of doing true offensives. But to be fair, Russian army is getting better slowly but surely, and at this point there is a gap, and that gap is becoming very dangerous for Ukraine. Now let's move to the situation on the Luhansk front line, or North Luhansk front line. Russian forces resumed their activity here. It's not huge pressure, nevertheless there is some pressure, and there were some advances by Russian troops around this village Kislivka. It's nothing truly major there. It's not major attack. It's more the situation on Ukrainian side where, as I mentioned before, motivation is down. So even if there is some meaningful pressure from the Russian side, this frequently leads to Ukrainian troops withdrawing, not sort of willing to kind of like do suicidal defense, and this is happening more and more across the front line. Generally, there are some, more motivated units such as Azov, 25th Brigade, and so on. But generally, this is general trend, general picture where the suicidal defense, rigid defense, is the thing of the past, not because Ukrainian command become wiser, more intelligent, and so on. It's just literally people on the ground, soldiers in the trenches, not willing to be kamikaze essentially, and that's really what's happening generally. Now let's move to the situation on the North Donbass front line. Things here a little bit more active in the northern sector. As you can see, Russian troops trying sort of squeeze towards Siversk. It's again nothing major. It looks more like a tie-up and distraction attack rather than anything truly sort of real. Now let's move to the situation west of Bakhmut. Things a little bit more stable. Russian troops so far got bogged down. Doesn't mean that things are sort of actually truly stable. Is sort of more like a temporary glitch in Russian advance rather than anything else. It could be potentially that Russian command is regrouping or pulling the resources towards area west of Avdiivka, where they truly have success and where uh, it's the best use of resources that's available. And I mentioned before, uh, Russian command does not have much free resources, and all of this attacks and advances, they consume a lot of resources. There are some successes on the Russian side, there's no question about it, but it's not without price. And so there's, you know, figuratively speaking, war is huge furnace, and it requires, burning material, and so this is what's going on. So for now, as I said, the Russian Russian troops broke down, and the capture of Chasiv Yar is becoming a little bit more distant. But as I said, it's very likely to happen unless miracle happens, which we all don't believe in. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line, where things are most dramatic for Ukraine. However, this couple of days things were somewhat stable. As I said before, Russian side needs sort of more resources, more troops, and so on, and apparently they sort of scrambling with that. However, this have a little bit more clarity for this situation. So, as I shown here, Arkhangelsk is firmly in Ukrainian hands, so that's going to be next sort of strong point here, and essentially Russian troops around it. Actually, Russian troops were stopped on the very western outskirts of Acheretin, and there is a brick manufacturing plant, and so the fight is somewhere around there, which is sort of a little bit of sign of hope that the retreat is not becoming disorganized, but it's sort of more measurable and controllable sort of. Then again, this is confirmed that Sokil is next Ukrainian stronghold, so Russian troops essentially approaching it. The same is for Novopokrovsk. Still, situation somewhat unclear in this area between Novopokrovsk and Semeniivka. Most likely, Russian troops are slowly but surely advancing here, but there is not much visibility. But as you can see, there's pretty significant blow. There's no question about it. This is just kind of big picture of the same what I'm shown. So this is this whole area that I was showing. Russian troops continuing their attacks in Krasnohorivka. This is now for them major key point, the sort of key objective that they attempting to capture. They going through it. It's obviously not easy target, so probably, I don't know, a week or two, and they will pass through that. Then it kind of like opens up a wide open field where it's going to be much harder for Ukrainian troops to hold Russian troops after that. So we'll see what happens then, but it's definitely situation is becoming more difficult for Ukrainian troops from a purely defensive perspective, because there is less urban area, and it's becoming more rural, where you need to build defenses in advance. You need to really dig in, prepare. You cannot do it overnight, or you can, but it's not going to be enough, and so on. So again, the chances of Ukrainian troops holding defensive line are becoming even lower just from that perspective. Again, this is something that's not helping Ukrainian troops at this point here. Now let's move and see what's going on Zaporizhzhia front line. Things here are fairly quiet. There are Russian attacks against Robotina. There's obsessive desire to capture that sort of remains of that village. There are some minimal advances there. In giving this obsession, probably apparently Russian troops will capture it in some due time, but there's nothing major there basically. Now let's look at the last section of the front line along the Dnipro River. Things here are pretty quiet. Right? The way, actually, to be fair, the way it's quiet is that Russian side is bombing these bridgeheads non-stop. So basically, they're trying to use bombs instead of people, which is very logical and reasonable strategy. At the same time, it's not doesn't yield quick results, let's put this way. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Till next time.